Good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 Annual Information Meeting. Bonjour.
Hello and welcome to the 2021 Annual Information Meeting.
My name is Leonard Lee White and I am the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the New Brunswick Public Service Pension Plan. We are very pleased to be able to be with you today for the 7th consecutive year. Thank you for joining us. Today's meeting was originally planned for September 30th, but once the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation was enacted, it was decided to postpone the annual information meeting by a week. With that in mind, we would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqiyik and Mi'kmaq territory. This territory was covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which the Wolastoqiyik and Mi'kmaq and Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized the Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. A few housekeeping items for you today. Presentations will be delivered in English and French with simultaneous translation available in both languages. You have the option to select your language of choice as indicated on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Closed captioning is provided for those joining us online. You have the option to turn it on by selecting your language of choice and clicking Join, or off by clicking Stop. We encourage you to submit any questions you have for your Board of Trustees or any of the presenters at any time during the meeting by clicking the Submit a Question icon. We will answer as many as we can during the question and answer session. And finally, a recording of today's webcast will be available on the plan's website in the coming days. Joining me today are fellow members of our Board of Trustees. Ross Galbraith, Vice Chair of the Board and an international representative for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Marilyn Quinn, retired registered nurse and past president of the New Brunswick Nurses Union. Sebastian Tichain, Dean of the Faculty of Administration at the Université de Moncton and Professor of Accounting. Mark Gaudette, Chair of the Audit Committee and a retired Assistant Deputy Minister with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. Catherine Greenbank, Chair of the Governance Committee and retired member of the Plan with public and private sector work experiences. Paul Martin, Controller for the Province of New Brunswick and past President of the New Brunswick Institute of Chartered Accountants. Susie Prudeg, President of the New Brunswick Union of Public and Private Employees, and Odette Robichaud, retired court stenographer and past President of CUPE Local 1840 and past CUPE Regional Vice President. We also have two observers on your board, Lee Sprague, Executive Director of the New Brunswick Union, and Bill Murray, Facilities Supervisor with the New Brunswick Community College and President of CUPE Local 5017. In addition, I would like to introduce today's presenters. Yves Plourde, an actuary and partner with the plan's independent actuarial firm, LifeWorks, formerly Morneau Chappelle. Yves will provide us with details relating to the plan's most recent actuarial valuation report. John Sinclair, President and CEO of Vescor Inc., the plan's investment manager and administration services provider. John will provide us with an overview of the outcomes from the investment management and administrative services provided to the plan in 2020. And Kim Sarters and Mark Bosse from Vescor's member services team, who will be sharing important details about your pension plan. As for myself, I am a retired Assistant Deputy Minister with the Department of Finance and Treasury Board and have been a trustee since 2014 and board chair for the past 2 years. As a board, we have very diverse backgrounds, providing us a strong board composition and different perspectives. Each of us has been appointed to the board by either the provincial government or one of the following unions: the New Brunswick Nurses Union, the New Brunswick Union of Public and Private Employees, Local 37 of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and by the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Locals 1252, 1840, and 5017. Many of us are also members of the plan. Even though we've been appointed by the aforementioned organizations, each of us has a fiduciary duty to the NBPSPP and must act in the best interest of the plan and its members when administering the affairs of the plan. Failure to do so can result in disciplinary actions or revocation of our appointment. Since the conversion of the plan in 2014, we have worked diligently to help ensure that the plan has remained secure, sustainable, and affordable. The design of the plan has proven to be successful as the plan is fully funded with a surplus. The focus of the plan is on stable, lower-risk investment strategies. This approach has paid off with long-term results of the plan exceeding the rate of return needed for the plan to remain well-funded. Admittedly, this low-risk approach means that when markets are strong, we may not see returns that are as high as some other plans. However, the opposite also holds true, and we have seen in the past when markets take a downturn, that plan has proven to be more resilient than other pension plans. The financial status of the plan and its investment principles will be explained in depth today by our presenters. When we spoke last year, we were about 6 months into the pandemic. At that time, we wanted to reassure you that we are focused on continuing to provide the same level of services and to ensure service providers continue to meet the needs of all our plan members. A year later, these priorities remain as we face continued challenges through this pandemic. We will now move on to our first presentation. The Actuarial Valuation Report is an important tool used by the Board of Trustees to assess the plan's ability to provide pension benefits to you. It also helps guide us in making decisions regarding the finances of the plan, such as granting the annual cost of living adjustment. Yves Plourde will present the 2020 results. Welcome, Yves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Yves Plourde, and I'm actuary at LifeWorks, formerly known as Morner Chappell. I am pleased to be here today to walk you through the results of the most recent actuarial evaluation for the Brunswick Public Service Pension Plan as at January 1st, 2021. I will start with a short summary of the membership in the plan, review the evolution of the assets and the plan liabilities over the years, discussing the results of financial position not only at January 1st, 2021, but through the recent past, and review how the plan's financial position was affected in 2020 by the pandemic. I will then review the risk management test results that we track annually, and finally provide information on the cost of living adjustments that was awarded by the trustees for January 1st, 2022. Let's start by the plan's membership. The number of active members has consistently grown since 2014, date of the reform, starting with just under 17,000 to a total number of about 19,000 as of January 1st, 2021. Similarly, the number of retirees grew significantly as Baby boomers have retired in droves during that period, from a total of 13,800 in 2014 to just over 17,000 at 1st of January. A positive note for the plan here is to see the number of active members has been increasing significantly, providing constant inflow of contributors and delaying otherwise earlier maturation of the plan. On the asset side, the pension fund has increased significantly over the past few years, at $6 billion in 2014 to $8.76 billion on January 1st, 2021. The year 2020 was particularly good from an investment perspective, with an investment return of 7.23%, given that this performance was achieved in the midst of pandemic. John will provide more information about the performance in his remarks a little later. Now, in order to be able to determine the financial position of the plan, we need to compare the assets of the plan to its liability. The plan's liability is a representation of how much money we believe should be in the fund at the time of evaluation in order to pay all the benefits that members have accrued up to the date of the evaluation. In order to calculate the liability, we need to make many assumptions about the future. One of those assumptions is the discount rate that we use at 4.5% per annum. This is a very conservative assumption and expected investment returns for the future, and we have revised this lower this year because of given the general reduction of the expectation for the future investment. However, we estimate that the fund can actually be expected to earn long term about 5.3% per annum. Such a conservative discount rate, and I assure you that this has nothing to do with politics of the Conservative Party. So a conservative discount rate ensures us that more often than not, plan investments should generate extra funds compared to our discount rate assumption. This was the case for 2014 to 2020, and this conservatism will continue to assist in generating future surplus in the plan. As you can see, the plan's liability went from just under $6 billion in 2014 to about $7.6 billion as of January 1st, 2021. You will notice that the assets of the plan increased faster than the plan liability over that period. This is partly due to the fact that we use a conservative discount rate in the calculation of the liability. To finally determine the financial position of the plan, the trustees add to the assets the amount of contributions made to the plans in excess of the cost of accruing benefits over the next 15 years. On January 1st, 2021, those excess contributions for the 15 years following the evaluation date represents an amount of $1.2 billion, which, when added to the assets, represents a total adjusted asset of $9.9 billion. Now, when you divide these assets by the liability, you obtain a funded ratio called the open group funded ratio. As you can see on this graph, this ratio has remained well above 100% over the recent past, which means that we believe there is enough assets in the plan, including excess contributions to be received, to provide for the benefits payable for the lifetime of active members and retirees. The funded ratio has in fact increased from a level of 121.5% in 2014 to 131.7% as of January 1st, 2020, which is just before the start of the pandemic. That means that with time, your pension benefits have become more secure as we accumulate a bigger buffer above 100%. You could say that the plan has been getting ready for the last 5 years to whatever risk may lie ahead, which brings me to the pandemic COVID-19 in which we still find ourselves today. As a result of the uncertainty created by the beginning of a pandemic in March 2020, the financial markets retreated in an unprecedented manner, hitting a low about the end of March 2020. For the first 3 months of the year 2020, the plan had investment returns of about minus 6.9%, which has reduced the funded status of the plan of the 131.7 at 1st of January 2020 to about 122.8 in the 31st of March 2020. Even with a world pandemic, the funded ratio of your plan remained well above 100%, and it even remained above the level it was at 2014. This shows the resilience of the pension plan to adverse events thrown at it. Although it's not surprising that financial markets react negatively to a pandemic, what happened after the March, in my opinion, is most remarkable when we saw the financial markets rebound almost as quickly as they had gone down. For the period of March 31st, 2021 to August 31st, 2020, the plan had investment return of over 10%, which brought the funded ratio back to 132%, where it was essentially at the beginning of the year 2020, before even the start of the pandemic. At 1st of January 2020, the funded ratio was still in excess of 130, with about 130.4. As I mentioned before, the plan has been basically preparing itself for the last 7 years, and to face an event like this. We are still not out of this pandemic, with a fourth wave of infections currently raging. It can therefore be expected that some heightened volatility and uncertainty in the financial markets will likely persist for some time. Nonetheless, the investment returns for 2021 up to the end of September continue to exceed our discount rate. We can therefore estimate that the funded ratio has continued to increase since the start of 2021. I sincerely hope that we will not have to revisit the lows of March 2020, but you can rest assured that your plan is ready to face the music, notwithstanding market volatility. Let's now think about the next 20 years. You can see that we expect that the funded ratio will hit over 139% in 20 years from now. This projection, which reveals that the ratio is expected to increase over time, reassures me that the design of the plan is such that chances of success for the future are on our side. The road ahead for the next 20 years will certainly hold many surprises in store for us, and 2021 was a perfect example of that. But we now know that the plan is very resilient, and the margins built within the plan to absorb those shocks are working. Let's now take a look at certain risk management tests conducted annually. The first risk management test involves calculating the probability that base benefits under the plan will not have to be reduced over the next 20 years. On that basis, the plan scores a 99.1%, which means that in more than 99% of studied cases, the base benefits payable from the plan remain intact. This score exceeds the minimum of 97.5 mandated by the pension law. Because the plan meets this test, it can continue to provide cost of living adjustment to all members and retirees. The second risk management test involves the calculation of average cost of living increases that can be expected in the plan over the next 20 years. The calculation results is expected to average cost of living of 82% of inflation over the next 20 years. Those two risk management test results continue to be very positive. They give us comfort in knowing that the security of the base benefits is very high and that there is very high likelihood that cost of living adjustments are going to continue. You can also get some reassurance with the fact that the province is guaranteeing that it will protect benefit levels existed at December 31st, 2013. This means that it's unlikely that trustees would have to reduce benefits benefits under the plan. The province will ensure that you'll never get less than what you had accumulated as at 31st of December 2013. I will now end my presentation by addressing the cost of living adjustment awarded by the trustees on January 1st, 2022. Every year, based on the financial position of the plan, the trustees have to decide if a cost of living adjustment can be awarded. For January 1st, 2022, they were able to award an amount of 1.46%, which is identical to the cost of living adjustment provided last year. This adjustment represents the full increase of the Consumer Price Index, or inflation, in Canada for the year ended June 30th, 2021. The cost of living adjustment is provided at a cost of $105 million for the plan. Finally, I want to mention that the trustees will be able to award cost of living adjustments in the future as the long plan funded ratio remains above 117. Even at the bottom of the financial market downturn at the end of 2021, the funded ratio only fell to 122.8%. This shows that the cost of living adjustment for either the last year, 1st of January 21, or this one of this year, January 1st in 2020, were never in jeopardy, even at during the depth of financial market downturn that we went through so far. I hope you found this information interesting and useful, and it will provide you with a better understanding of the resiliency of your plan in the face of adversity. Thank you for your attention. I will be available for questions later on today.
We're very pleased with the results of the actuarial evaluation report. As noted, the funded status of the plan at the end of 2020 allowed the board to once again provide the full cost of living adjustment as permitted under the terms of the plan. Active contributors and deferred members will have this amount applied to their benefits earned up to December 31st, 2020, while retirees will see this increase applied to their monthly pension benefit as of January 1st, 2022. Moving on to our next presentation, it is our pleasure today to welcome Kim Sarters and Marc Bossé from Vestcor Member Services team to provide us with a short presentation on your roadmap to retirement. 2 years ago, at our last in-person annual information meeting, the Member Services team joined us in person to answer individual questions from members who were present. Although that is not possible again this year, the team remains available to provide support to all our members from Monday to Friday, 8:15 to 4:30, via telephone, email, and in-person visits. Welcome, Kim and Marc.
Bonjour à tous, mon nom c'est Marc Bossé.
Hi, I'm Marc Bossé, analyst at Vestcor. I will do the road to retirement. So the first part of the presentation will be in French. I will be doing it, and then the second part of the presentation will be in English that my colleague Kim will do for you. So on the agenda today, we'll talk about the pension estimates, the online calculator. We'll also review important periods, which if retirement is on the horizon, we have key periods, 1 year prior to your retirement date, 6 months before your retirement date, various pension forms, and receiving your first pension payment. So we'll start by using the employee statement and pension benefits, the estimator online. It's available on our website. You can see the address on the screen. So it's a calculator that can project what will be your benefits in the future. and it's a tool that we recommend to all of our members to use, especially new members, whatever the period they are in their period of work. To use online calculator, all you need is a pension estimates. If you don't have your pension estimates, contact Vestcor, and we'll be able to provide the last copy of your pension estimates. We also have developed an online tool. It's a YouTube link that you can go on, and it provides information how to use our online calculator. If you're not comfortable in using the calculator online, you can communicate with us at all times, and we can do the pension estimates for you without having to touch it. Or if you're curious at how to use that calculator, we can do it directly and show you how to use it directly with you. So the next slide here is, you'll see at the screen that on the portion on the left we have the pension estimates, and on the right we have what is the result of a calculation from the online calculator. So we'll see together the things that are being useful. To use the online calculator, you have to provide your age, your date of birth, and your annual income, and provide the date that you will cease working and the date that you want to start your pension payments. So the last thing that you have to include on the left at the bottom, you'll see a box where there's 4 amounts indicated. The online calculator will ask you to include those 4 amounts, and that, without going into details, those are indicators as to how much annual dues that you've paid so as to be able to project your future payments. And that comes back to the point that I've just done, that you need your pension estimates to be able to calculate your benefits, your future benefits.
In section on right, we'll come back to the results of the calculator, and you'll see that if the example that we have, if you'll use the date where you want to start your benefits before 65 years of age, you'll see 2 green lines. So we're going to review what the lines represent. So the line on the top are the benefits that you're going to receive monthly before 65 years of age. So we're going to discuss that in more details. If you choose a date where you start your benefits before age of 65, that is or pre-retirement. And after 65, and the normal age of retirement at 65. So every individual that decides to get their benefits before the age of 65 years is found to be a early retirement. For those with early retirement, they're going to receive a basic benefit. In the example we have here, the basic one, monthly gross, is $1,000, 22 and 36 cents. And that individual is also going to receive an additional benefit above the basic benefits, which is delay. So the English term, a bridge benefit. And that individual is going to receive one sum. The entire sum is gross. And then after age of 65, we'll see on the bottom line, the person is only going to receive the basic benefit of $1,000, $22.36. So once for individuals that start early retirement, it's a bridge up to 55, and then at 65, the bridge benefit is removed, and the individual received a monthly payment of 65 years up until death. we'll see together the types of pensions. So the types of pensions is when you're going to apply formally for your retirement, we're going to provide with you different types of forms to choose from. You have to choose only one, and when you're going to choose it, once you're going to start receiving your first payment of pension, according to the pension form, you can't go back. So you continue with that form of pension for the rest of your retirement. So the forms of pension were conceived to give some flexibility to some individuals who have different life situations. Either they have spouses, no spouses, children, no children, so it can accommodate different situations. We're going to overview or look at them individually. The first is the joint and survivor company paid at 55%, what we call the normal form of pension. I'm going to go aside on this item, this point. We call this the normal form of pension since during the reform in 2014, it was in fact the only form of pension that was available. So if you have any colleagues that are already retired in the past before 2014, they only had one choice to choose from. So for you now, there are different forms of pensions. We still call it the normal form because of that. However, there are people who are going to tell me, well, I'd like to take the normal form of pension. Since we call it the normal form, it should be the most popular. And in fact, that's not precise. You have to choose the form of pension that applies the best for you. And we have the joint and survivor paid at 60% and 100%, spouse only at retirement. So we're going to look at the first three that we just discussed together. So the 50, 60, and 100%. You probably already guessed that the way it works is that as soon as you're going to pass away, your spouse is going to receive the percentage that you chose. So a percentage of the benefits that you received while you were still living. And then we're going to look at the two other ones. The life pension guarantee of 10 and 15 years from the date of retirement. These are structured quite differently from the first three ones that we've just seen. And this one, the way it works is your beneficiaries are going to receive a benefit, survivor benefits. And the survivor benefits for these two options are only for a limited period of time. So the best way that I found to explain these two examples or two forms of pension is under a form of examples. We're going to use together the guarantee period for 10 years. We're going to use myself as an example. Let's say I have no spouse and I have no children, but however, I have a brother. If I decided to choose my brother as a beneficiary to receive a survivor pension. So the way it's going to work, let's say if I retire and if I pass away 6 years after having taken my retirement, so my brother is going to receive 4 years of survivor benefits. So he's going to receive, for the residual period of 10 years, survivor benefits. We're going to use the same example a second time. I choose my brother as a beneficiary, and this time around I pass away 9 years after taking my retirement. You'll probably guess that my brother is going to receive only 1 year of benefits, survivor benefits. And for the last example, to make sure that it is clear, then if I pass away 12 years after having retired, my brother is going to receive no benefits. So the guarantee period is over and there are no more guarantees that are payable. So to come back to the first three, the 50, 60, and 100%, the benefits are payable to a spouse and the benefits of survivor benefits are paid for life in this situation. And the last point I'd like to raise is we'll go back here when we look at the online calculator. The online calculator only gives the results of the normal pension form of 50%. So the online calculator is not conceived to give results of the 60 to 100% and the 10 and 15 years. So to receive estimates For other options, you'd have to make a formal request for us to get the detailed estimates that we are able to provide to you. And that's going to complete my part, and my colleague Kimberly is going to go on.
Hi, everyone. Merci, Marc. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll continue in English for this part of the presentation. And so now that you know how to use the online calculator, when you are and you've done you've gone on and done your own estimates, and you've determined when you would like to start your pension, then you can ask for a formal estimate within a year of retirement. And you can do that either by contacting VESCOR directly or asking your human resources. After about 60 days, within 60 days of doing your request, you should receive your options. You are always welcome to contact VESCOR if you'd like assistance to review those options. So when you are within 6 months of retirement, you know your retirement date, it's recommended to meet with your HR to request to apply for your pension. And so there are documents you'll have to complete with your HR and send them to VESCOR. Within 60 days again, VESCOR will send you your pension options. And you can call VESCOR again to review your options. Those will be the ones that Mark reviewed earlier. And with that, we will help you tell you what documents are necessary depending on the pension option you choose. Once you've chosen your pension option, you'll need to send in your package back to VESCOR with the required documents. So some of the documents that are necessary with respect to starting your pension include the Declaration of Marital Status form, and that document is required for anyone who is starting their pension. Whether you're single, married, separated, divorced, widowed, that document is required. The Declaration of Common Law Partner, that's pretty straightforward. If you are living with someone with at least 2 years of cohabitation, that's considered under the Pension Benefits Act as common law, and that form would need to be completed and witnessed by a Commissioner of Oaths, including proof of cohabitation. The Joint and Survivor Pension Waiver, depending on the option you choose, you'll need to complete this form. So basically, any option you choose that offers less than 60% to a surviving spouse, you would need to complete this form. And your spouse as well, they are acknowledging the option you have chosen for retirement. The designation or change of beneficiary form is very important, and actually as an active employee currently, if you're working, you're contributing to the pension plan, is recommended that you complete this. While you have a spouse, the spouse is the automatic entitled to a survivor benefit. However, if you and your spouse should both pass away at the same time, naming a beneficiary will allow that person to apply for the benefit. Again, you're always welcome to contact VESCOR to review any of these forms before you start your pension, or at any time during your career. So prior to receiving your first pension payment, so you've sent in all your documentation, and we've told you that you are going to start receiving your pension, you will receive a notice that identifies the gross amount of pension you'll receive, any deductions that would be related, like income tax, and then the net amount. Once you receive your first pension payment, as advised earlier, you would not be able to change your pension option. However, if you have chosen a guarantee period, for instance, you can definitely change your beneficiary. So that's something you can always call VESCOR and ask about. Calendar of pension payments is available on our website. In this pension plan, you do receive your pension payment on the 24th of the month. And so if the 24th of the month, for instance, is a weekend or a holiday, it would be the first available business day prior. For instance, October 24th is a Sunday, so those who are receiving a pension will receive their payment on Friday the 22nd. And this point leads into one of the questions that we've received earlier, so I will answer that immediately. I will read out the question. What is the best time of the month to start retirement and why? As to not wait a month and a half without income. Can you please demonstrate a comparison between choosing a date at the beginning and at the end of the month? And so probably the best time for you to terminate employment basically would be the end of the month prior to your pension start date. You can only start your pension the month following termination or following termination. And because the pension payments are always on the 24th of the month, you would probably get your pay for the end of the previous month, but then that would give you 2 weeks without pay. So the best time of the month would be at the end of the month prior to your pension start date. Hope that answers that question, but you're always welcome to contact VESCOR. And finally, our resources online. You can always go onto the VESCOR's website to find our application forms, for instance, the pension estimate request. There are life events on our website that you can look at and review, our employee presentations, as well as newsletters that are distributed twice a year, and the pension estimate calculator, and much more. And of course, our analysts here at VESCOR are able to answer your questions anytime between 8:15 and 4:30, Monday to Friday, and by email if you ever want to send us one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim and Mark. A reminder to members to never hesitate to contact Kim, Mark, and the remainder of the member services team for any inquiries you have relating to your plan. And as a recent retiree, I can certainly say that member services were very helpful in walking me through the process. There remain several legal actions in process related to the reforms of the public sector pension plans in 2014, one of which directly affects the plan and the board. As we have reported in the past, the board has retained legal counsel to defend the interests of the plan. Hearing of motions is scheduled for later this autumn, and the board will continue to provide updates to members as warranted. Joining us now is John Sinclair, President and CEO of VESCOR, the plan's investment manager and administration services provider. John will provide us with a summary of the plan's 2020 results and an update for 2021. John?
Thank you, Leonard, and good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to provide an update since we last met during this event last year. So to start off, just a reminder of who exactly VESCOR is. We are a private, not-for-profit company that was created by legislation as per the VESCOR Act in 2016. Our independent, non-public nature fits very well with the independence of our two owners, your pension plan and the New Brunswick Teachers' Pension Plan. VESCOR is governed by an independent expert board of directors that's made up of a number of individuals who fit a specific skills matrix and set of experiences in line with what's required to govern an organization of our type. We are regulated and supervised by the Financial and Consumer Services Commission of New Brunswick, both as an investment manager and a portfolio manager. And as you probably know, your pension plan is actually supervised by the Superintendent of Pensions, which is a separate group within the Commission, or FCNB, as well. We provide investment management and plan administration services to over 11 clients on the investment side. Total assets under management are currently at a little over $20 billion, or almost $21 billion. And we administer 11 separate pension plans and 4 employee benefits plans on behalf of the province of New Brunswick. Our team of about 144, I believe we are now, individuals are based here in Fredericton and provide hands-on administration services and global investment management services out of our offices. We have a significant amount of transparency with respect to our annual report, our independently audited financial statements and performance management statements through various reports on our website, vestcor.org, and primarily through our annual report, which provides a significant amount of reporting on how we have done versus various administration key performance indicators and investment management targets that have been set out to service our clients. Finally, those audited financial statements are provided within that annual report and provide a significant amount of expense disclosure and financial statements. So I'll start off by providing an update of our administration team. And again, just to remind you what exactly our administration group is responsible for, we do provide the day-to-day administration of pension and employee benefits plans. So with respect to the payroll activity, with respect to paying out pensions to retirees, setting up new retirees in our pension system, providing the statements that was referred to by both Mark and Kim earlier, all of that activity is done through our by our admin team. Our member services group provides information much like you had just seen with respect to updates on the plan. They service active members, deferred members and retirees, surviving spouses and beneficiaries where applicable, and are quite active with respect to working with the human resource departments of various employers who are members of your plan. Our board support services team provides organizational services to trustees such as your plan and helps them with respect to providing governance support and best practice expertise and references where necessary. And then last but not least, our communications team provides a lot of detailed resources around informing members of how to better understand their plans and are very active in a number of various communication venues, our website, newsletters, annual reports, and setting up annual meetings such as the one we're doing here this afternoon. So in 2020, as had been discussed earlier in a number of places, our organization, like many others, was impacted by the COVID pandemic. But we are happy to be able to report that we were able to continue to provide services that are required by our membership throughout the earlier days of that pandemic and continue to do so today. On a cost per member basis, I think we reported to you last year that our cost per member was about $93, and we were the second lowest among a national peer group organization that we interact with and provide a significant amount of benchmarking data. Costs are up slightly on a year-over-year basis, but we do remain in that second lowest category with respect to the cost per member for the administration services we provide. We provided support to over 10,600 various member and employer requests just from this pension plan alone. And as you can imagine, during the pandemic, that was something that, first of all, was not the easiest thing to provide with respect to making sure that information was provided in a timely fashion. And we were able to do that by relying on our team internally and the resources that we had put in place with our business continuity plans, for example. For those of you who've used our services in the past, you would have seen a satisfaction survey that we send out to each and every member that we serve to get feedback. And even though we were going through the pandemic process in most of 2020, very pleased to be able to report that we received an overall satisfaction score of a positive satisfaction score over 95% of the various services that we had actually provided. As well, we continue to work on a number of various improvements in resources to members and to our pension plan clients. Our website, vestcor.org, continues to grow with respect to information, be it the pension calculator that was referred to earlier, with respect to publications such as the annual report and newsletters. But as well, if you haven't had an opportunity to go on the website, there's a significant amount of educational videos and presentations covering a number of questions that typically come into our organization. You can find that information specific to your plan by going on vestcor.org and just following the pension plan tab to locate your specific plan and the information specific to your plan. Finally, we had mentioned at this time last year that we were undertaking a pension administration modernization program. And our timing probably couldn't have been worse with respect to that. Launching a new pension plan system in the midst of a pandemic was challenging, but certainly we're very pleased to be able to report that we were able to continue to provide the key services necessary, be they, again, making sure that retirees were receiving their pension payments on time, that people who were looking to get set up on their pension plan were being set up in a very timely basis. And considering the impact of COVID not only to our own organization, the system provider we were using to help us with respect to implementing this system, and as you can imagine, the implication that many of the employer groups and the HR departments of those employer groups went through, we were very happy to, again, be able to provide those various services. Now, I think last year we had noted that some of the systems, because we did have to go through a bit of a prioritization process, had been delayed. One of them being, for example, the statements that we were providing to members during last year. But hopefully you've noticed this year that statements went out in a much more timely fashion. And with respect to our statement production going forward and all the other services we provide, we're happy to report that we're back on track to our pre-COVID levels. We're looking forward to leveraging our system to actually improve on those times and service levels in the near future. So on the investment management side of things, just a reminder again of what we do on behalf of your pension plan. First of all, we work very closely with your group of trustees to help advise them with respect to setting up the investment policy that will provide the ability for them to continue to provide the pension plan returns that are required. And Eve went through exactly what some of those goals and objectives are with respect to the long-term returns that are needed for the plan, and some of the various risk metrics that need to be followed as well with respect to shared risk plan legislation that these plans are subject to. We're happy to point out that we continue to meet and exceed those actuarial target rates and benchmarks that are set out through the investment policy, and I can show those on this slide. So this shows the investment performance on the left-hand side for the year 2020 for a 4-year longer-term period, and since the plan was originally converted back in January 1st of 2014, and even longer back when our former organization, NBIMC, started managing the public service plan back in 1996. So first of all, you can see that the dashed horizontal line outlines that target discount rate of 4.75% that Eve had mentioned earlier. And irrespective of which period you look at here, you can see that the benchmark return, the lighter blue bar, which represents your investment policy targets, have exceeded that 4.75%, whether it was last year, 4 years, or since inception. So very positive there in terms of being able to not only exceed that 4.75, but add additional returns to, again, create more security to your plan. In addition to that, our internal investment team, through their active management operations, have been able to add additional value above and beyond that investment policy benchmark, which is shown in the dark blue line, or the line that corresponds to the right-hand axis, which we call the gross value added over benchmarks. You can see that 2020 was a little bit more of a struggle than it has been over the long term. We added 13 basis points. But considering the volatility that had been observed during the year, feel pretty comfortable with where that turned out. But you can see over the longer terms, we're almost adding close to 1% in addition to the investment policy through the active investment management activity of the organization. And then last but not least, one of the other things that is outlined in your annual report and is very detailed. There's a very detailed description of it in the VestCorp annual report, if you have an interest there, is that our investment management expenses are much lower because of our structure, our not-for-profit structure, than third-party external managers. Indications in the past that we've shown, I think if I go back just to last year's annual meeting, was we indicated that our investment management expenses were anywhere from 3 to 6 times more cost-effective than using external third-party managers. We've included this slide this year to outline or provide additional insight into how the lower risk investment approach works and what we almost call counter-cyclical performance. So, for example, one of the things that we expect with this investment program is that in sort of normal investment periods, we should see performance that would be pretty similar to what a traditional defined benefit pension plan, a traditional defined benefit pension plan is one that typically has more risk in it, would perform with. But in periods of market downturns, we would expect that the shared risk plan and your pension plan would do better than the traditional defined benefit pension plan. And in order to provide that better performance in weaker market environments, we're going to have to give something up with respect to our policy and would expect that we probably wouldn't perform as strongly in very strong market environments. So here we've taken 4 years of quarterly returns to illustrate that story. And here what we've done is we've taken a composite of all of the Vestcor investment management clients who are either a shared risk or a target benefit pension plan, your plan included, and it's the largest in this composite, so it's very much represented here. And you can see we've plotted this against some publicly available information that's quarterly produced by LifeWorks on a pool of diversified pension managers across the country. And so if we start on the left-hand side, back at the beginning of 2017, you can see that returns for the Vestcor, let's call them shared risk or, again, target benefit plans, have performed pretty similarly to the others up until we get to the first volatile down market period, which is the last quarter of 2018. And in December of 2018, the U.S. Federal Reserve Board had started talking about increasing interest rates quite significantly back then, and that essentially caused equity markets to drop quite precipitously. You can see here that the survey plans had a return of probably close to -6% during the period, and while the Vestcor pension funds were negative, it was a small fraction of what the larger plans had seen. So again, that risk mitigation piece very much validated there. You can see as markets rebounded in early 2019, some of that was given back. But when we come to the next volatile period, which was the first quarter of last year when COVID hit, and we saw global equity markets down almost 30% during that period, the external survey pension funds were down somewhere close to 10 to 11%, versus, again, the Vestcor shared risk or target benefit plans were down much less. And again, some of that obviously has reversed as markets normalized quite strongly during the 2020 period. So, again, thinking about what's required, we showed in the earlier slide that we have more than been able to make returns in excess of what's required to fund the plan and provide additional stability and security. And you can see that as well, the performance to date as well has provided this counter-cyclical protection during adverse market downturns that is helpful in terms of maintaining a steady state relationship from a risk perspective. And then last but not least, just on the right-hand side, one of the things we like to do is just a calculation of risk-adjusted returns over that longer-term period. And here we've just shown that, for example, the Vestcor plan return was 717 per annum over that 4-year period. The risk is calculated over those quarters on a standard deviation perspective is about 6.4% for our unit of return per risk of 116. When we chain together those surveyed external funds, you can see that their return was slightly higher at 757 over that longer-term 4-year period, but significantly more risk is calculated by the standard deviation risk number of 977 and an inferior unit of return per risk of 7.77. Now, the other thing that we need to consider here is that these are gross numbers pre-fees, and as I mentioned earlier, we know that our not-for-profit investment management expense ratio is significantly lower than external managers. So if we were able to determine what the average fee was for these clients, I would expect that the actual returns annualized after fees would be pretty close, if not better from our perspective. Lastly, just wanted to point out one of the combination of investment assets that does create this lower risk approach that we just reported on. And so a typical defined benefit pension plan, for those who sort of follow the area closely, typically has about 60% equity exposure and 40% fixed income exposure. But if you look at this breakdown of the mix of assets for your plan, you can see that it's much more diversified, has less equity exposure. So here, for example, we have about 40% equity exposure. And if you look at the bar at the bottom, you can see about half of that exposure is in lower volatility equities. So strategies we think will perform solid equity returns over the longer term, but again, perform in a less volatile fashion. And then you can see that we have a mix of other investments like inflation-linked assets like infrastructure and real estate, for example, and some absolute return strategies that we manage in-house that help, again, provide that additional level of diversification. So to wrap up on the investment side of things, strong investment returns have continued to mid-year. Eve had provided a bit of an update of where your funding ratio stood at mid-year. And if you haven't received yet your mid-year investment newsletter, or not your investment newsletter, but public service pension plan newsletter, you'll see that the returns to mid-year are about 3.6%. So returns have continued to be strong as markets have been strong and the global economy continued to recover. The 4-year annualized return is close to that 7% number that we had showed to you earlier, so that stays very much intact. And assets under management have increased by about $200 million, so we're close to about $9 billion as per mid-year. My investment services, my member services colleagues had mentioned that we are open to take requests from members. We have done a lot of work around being able to interact with members virtually, whether it's email, telephone, using online video capabilities like Microsoft Teams or Zoom, for example. We can set up situations like that. We have opened our office where necessary, but have instituted some protocols around vaccination status checks or social distancing. So please feel free, again, to reach out at any time if there are any issues that come up there. And to wrap up, as sort of mentioned in the bottom, investment management expenses being lower, we talked about that. But if you look at your annual report, I believe it's on page 13, there's a good discussion there on the overall service costs, both administration and investment that Vestcor provides. And they are significantly lower than what an external third party would provide. And for 2020, you'll see that actually the overall costs were lower in terms of dollars and as a percentage of assets. So that wraps up my presentation, and look forward to taking any questions.
Thank you, John. That completes our formal presentations for today. I know we are running late, but we have time for a few questions, and those that are not answered today, we will get back to you directly through Vestcor. So moving on to the question and answer period, I'm pleased to welcome fellow trustee Susie Prudeg to monitor this period. Thank you, Susie.
Merci, Leonard.
Thank you, Leonard.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here today with you. As Leonard mentioned, Laura, I'm Susie Prudeg, and I'm member of the Trustees Board as a participant, also as a participant.
presented to us today. Please submit your questions to us by clicking on the Ask a Question button that appears on your screen. Note that if you have questions specific to your own personal pension situation, we encourage you to contact the Member Services team by calling 1-800-561-4012 or by emailing info@vestcor.org. Now, as Leonard said, we're going a little over the confirmed meeting time, so we're going to extend it for about 10 to 15 minutes so we can answer a few questions before we wrap up. We did receive many questions prior to the session as well as during the session, and unfortunately we won't be able to get to all of them, but we will answer every one of them directly by email within the next day or so, and we'll also be posting those questions and answers in a summary document on the website in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to move to our first question here. So this is someone who sent the same question, I guess, over the last couple of years. They're saying they keep being told that it's being worked on. The person saying, I don't see the problem with civil servants when they retire to just take their pre-shared risk pension out and leave the post portion untouched until later. I know for a fact that the municipality I reside in, their city workers can do this. Both portions have to be calculated, so why can't we choose if we want both right away or just one? I think it's unfair that if we want to retire before the age of 65, while we're healthy and can enjoy life not working, we're penalized by having to lose 5% each year between 60 and 65. We've worked hard for our pensions. We're going to lose it as when we take our federal pension, our provincial one is scaled back. So I'd ask Leonard if you could please answer this one.
Thank you, Susie. And I think this question is really two questions. The first one is the split receipt of pensions into two components, pre-reform and post-reform. We have done some work on this, and what we have determined is it's significantly costlier to administer a pension plan that is set up this way. We also understand through research that has shown for the number of plans that have offered this option to their members who have selected, there's been very low uptake by members, which effectively means that the increased administration costs are borne by those that are not electing to avail themselves to this option of splitting their pension into two components. As such, this isn't a priority of the board at this time. The second point, and this was touched on a little by Mark Bosse a little earlier on what happens at age 65. If you do retire earlier, there is that bridge benefit that he referred to because of the integration with the Canada Pension Plan. And at age 65, that bridge drops away, which effectively means you're going to get two checks and after age 65. One is CPP and one is the benefit under this plan. However, there are complications if you decide to take your CPP before age 65. So that's another reason to reach out to member services to fully understand how the bridging affects you or may affect you depending on other choices you make.
All right, thanks, Leonard. Next one's going on to John Sinclair. Question for Vescor. The plan's investment manager and administration service provider. Why won't you allow an audit? Why do you have a unique nonprofit status? Shouldn't members receive some of these benefits?
Yes, thank you for the question. So first of all, we do have an audit, as I mentioned in my presentation. We are audited by a national accounting firm. That firm does have access to a number of industry-based professionals who are part of that audit. Those financial statements are part and parcel of our annual report, so you can reference those on our website at vescor.org, or just send us an email request as well, and we can send you a hard copy if that's of interest. So there is a significant audit process that goes on according to best practices. With respect to the not-for-profit status, actually, the benefits do accrue to the members because what happens is, for example, the savings that are gained actually go right to the heart of the pension plan. As you can imagine, the investment management activity creates a growth in assets under management, but that's only after fees are paid for. So with respect to us being more cost effective, as I mentioned in my presentation, that cost effectiveness comes generally because we are a not-for-profit, and those savings do accrue directly to the fund because they're not paying the higher management fees that they might be paying if they were using a third-party manager.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Une question en français.
A question in French. I'm not in agreement with the inflation rate. The cost of living are increasing consistently. All around your table, you can't say the opposite because you also consume products. I don't understand your way of calculating. Why is it that it's only 1.46%? And this question should go to Yves, rather. Thank you. The inflation rate and is adjusted to cost of living are calculated from inflation. And published by Stat Canada. So we don't decide the inflation rate. It's Stat Canada that calculates the inflation rate in Canada, and the trustees that use that information to bring some adjustment to cost of living. The 1.46% that is given January 1st, 2022 is based on the raise of Consumer Price Index for the year of 1st of July 2020 to June 30th, 2021. So these are official rates of inflation for that period. And I agree that at the present time, inflation rate in the last month was 4%. But if you will recall, in the summer of 2020, inflation rate was 0 and 0.1%. So when we do the average of 12 months, over 12 months, to calculate the inflation, that's where the 1.46 is calculated. If the inflation remains at 3 and 4% for this year, as it has been in July and August 2021, and if it remains for the rest of the year until January or June 30th, 2022, we'll see for an opportunity to give an adjustment to cost of living of 3 or 4% if we see the inflation remains there for the year at that level. In fact, because of surpluses in the plan, if inflation had been 4% for the year before June 30th, 2021, the trustees would have been able to give a full 3 or 4% in adjustment at the end of the year. So if the inflation rate continues to remain at 3 or 4% with the capitalization rate of the plan remains at the present level, that type of indexation will be able to be provided on January 1st, 2023.
Goes to Mark or Kim. Where do you access your pension estimate for the online calculator?
Hi, thank you for the question. So your online calculator, the URL for that, if you want to access, is vescor.org/calculators. And so you can go onto that calculator and use your most recent statement to do your estimates. And if you don't have your statement, you're always welcome to call us at Member Services.
All right. Eh bien,
I have one more that just popped up. For Eve, what happens to the plan when there is no more retirement or more retirees than active contributors? When a plan increases the number of retirees, we call that the maturation of the plan. The actuarial evaluation foresees that a maturation of the plan and foresees an increase of retirees. So as such, the fact that we'll see more retirees in the future already has been taken into consideration in the actuarial evaluation that we're doing now. So I don't see any problem. We simply have to take the time to look and adjust our policies consequently and ensure that the risk taken by the plan is in agreement with the maturation of the plan. Thank you, Eve. So we had said that the session would finish at 1, and we're trying to respect that as much as possible for those who had planned on it. So we'll now conclude the question and answer for today. Note that if you have questions that you weren't able to ask, you can always do it by email or phone.
Question, and we were unable to answer it during the meeting. We'll be responding to you and including your question and answers in a summarized document to be posted online at vescor.org/NBPSPP in the coming weeks. Au nom du Conseil des fiduciaires.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I wish to thank you for your participation today. I also wish to thank all of those who presented today and joined us, as well as the Vescor team who looked after organizing this meeting.
Information session. Thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful day.